Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Richard Dickson podcast, where every week I promise you that I'm going to be doing more podcasts with guests, and then I realise that I have a business to run, and then I decide to run that business and record this podcast about 2 hours before it is meant to be out, myself talking about stuff that you probably don't care that much about, but it makes my life easier. So yeah, again, I will be trying to get more guests, but today you've just got me. It's just me and you. Spend a little bit of time together, whether you're driving in the car, whether you're watching this on your phone or laptop, whether you're on a nice holiday somewhere. Don't know why you would then consider listening to me. Some of the topics I talk about on this podcast are likely to ruin your holiday, but maybe you're like me and you're a hyper realist. Today we're going to be talking about something that we all experience in life, regardless of whether you are an entrepreneur or you're just like a normal employee in parenting, whatever it may be, right? That this is something we all experience. It's called imposter syndrome. To give you an idea, if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, I don't really have, I guess, a key definition that lasts like one sentence that I can just give you. I'm better at analogizing things or giving like almost real life examples on what it looks like. Now, imposter syndrome, I guess, is exactly that. It's a lack of feeling of belonging, generally tied into what you feel your worth is in a situation. For example, you have just got a new job and you're only 3 months into the job, and one of the managers comes to you and says, hey, I know you've only been here for 3 months, but you're doing some really amazing stuff at the company, and we think that you would be a great assistant manager. An assistant manager role is just about to come up and we would love for you to apply for it. Now, some people are happy to seize that kind of moment. You know, they'll be like, oh, that's great, I'm progressing really fast. And, well, most people will probably react like that. And then there's certain amounts of people, probably the majority actually, who will sit down and start filling out the application or doing whatever, and they start to think to themselves, am I good enough for this? Like, am I worthy of having this opportunity? Have I got good enough people management skills? Am I experienced enough? The salary jumps up by £8,000. Am I worth £8,000 more per year? And that's imposter syndrome. It's this little voice in the back of your head that's telling you, not because it's not like some evil demonic thing. It's just you trying to be almost too logical and talk yourself out of stuff. So that's an example of imposter syndrome. Is having a detachment from what your kind of worth is in any certain situation, whether that be applying for a new job, opening a business, charging a certain price, raising your own kids. It happens to everyone. Now, as soon as someone talks about imposter syndrome, if this is not something that you've thought about previously, you'll now be chronically aware of this for like the rest of your life. So sorry if I'm the person that's done that, but I imagine most of the people who are watching this probably already have an understanding of imposter syndrome, what it's been like for them and stuff like that. Now, you can train yourself to reduce your feelings of imposter syndrome. And that is normally rooted in how you think about yourself, what you believe about yourself, what kind of things you stand for, things you have achieved. A lot of the big issues in terms of your confidence and stuff like that is solved by the actions that you take or have taken. Like, when I meet people who are like, oh, I'm really not body confident because let's say they're overweight, for example. I'm really not body confident and I'm trying to find a way to become more confident about my body. And they start to think about, should I speak to, a psychologist or something like that? When really, what you should be doing is trying to change your body, right? And become more comfortable with your body because you're happier with the body that you've created for yourself, right? So a lot of this stuff is trained out through action. So if you're looking for just like one little tablet I'm going to give you here that is going to, totally change your life and make everything super easy, that unfortunately is not going to be from me. It's often going to be in the actions that you take determine how you feel about your self-worth. And previous experiences, that same analogy I'm talking about with the management. Let's say you were a manager at a previous job and something's went wrong in your life and you're starting at another business, and you're starting from a position lower down. You might think to yourself in that situation, I have previous management experience, I can go and do this. Like, that experience and those actions you've taken previously, have this air freshener in this room, by the way, oh my goodness, it's destroying my nose. You might have the confidence to now go and apply for that job because your past experiences have led you to have the skills to apply in that scenario, essentially. So imposter syndrome is one of the things that can really, when not checked properly, can really harm someone's progression just as a human in general. It'll harm your progression in your workplace, in your life, and ultimately mean you're consistently in this cycle of not feeling like you deserve what you have. Now, I've done some really stupid stuff in my life. Stupid, right? Within the last year, I've done stupid stuff. And I'm leaning mostly, at this point, towards cars, right? I don't regret any of the cars that I've had, but I look at it and I'm like, what a horrific waste of money. And also I look at it sometimes and I always say this sentence. For example, when I bought like a Rolls Royce, I had no business having a Rolls Royce. I had no business having one, right? I didn't feel imposter syndrome whilst, driving that car, but I kind of look at it from the outside in and I'm like, who the hell did I think I was driving that car? Like, what an absolute maniac. But it was fun at the time, right? Now, for me to get to that point in my life where I could have those things, I had to do like a reasonable amount of work to be able to go and do that. Now, granted, I don't have kids. I don't really have any dependents. I don't have any like real stupendous fixed overheads. If I have a month where I spend a lot, like I book a holiday or something, like that's a choice buying that thing. It's not like I don't have any like fixed massive overheads. My house isn't particularly expensive. Like it's not, £5,000 a month or whatever. But my overheads are cool. So I had years of being able to work, and all I really needed to care about was looking after myself. And I was more than looked after, so I could start buying all this kind of nonsense. The imposter syndrome happened for me in the process of getting to that point where I could start doing stupid shit that I had no business doing. And it comes from every angle. Like every angle. It doesn't matter whether you are the most confident person in the world, you're really lacking in confidence. Any scenario you can find imposter syndrome. When I done my first ever in-person meeting for my business, and that is not a big deal at all. I've had thousands and thousands of meetings in my life, right? But those like first meetings, I remember sitting down and thinking, and I'm tattooed, I'm pretty heavily tattooed. For example, this sleeve on my arm here, I've had since I was about 19 or 20 years old. I've got this here I've only had for maybe 3 years. I've had a tattoo on the back of my head since I was like 19, tattoos all over my legs and stuff like that. So in terms of the industry I was in, I looked really different to everyone else, right? I looked really, really different. And that never bothered me. I'm not embarrassed about how I look. I don't hate my tattoos. I wouldn't get rid of them. But I would be like sitting thinking to myself like, oh, what if they come in and they don't like how I look? Is this really something that I should be doing? Am I presentable enough to actually be in this meeting? Am I intelligent and experienced enough to go and actually fulfill this service? I only really learned how to do this not that long ago, and this is a totally new business, and it's something I don't have any like prerequisite skills in. What if they ask me about that? What am I meant to do? Am I meant to like lie and say I'm experienced? Am I meant to, just be honest, and then they maybe don't want to work with me? And I quickly found out that how you position, this is a total tangent, but how you position meetings and how you communicate and the pre-meeting content that person consumes from you really determines their respect for you when they get to the meeting. So you can handle all those kind of objections, such as, how long have you been doing this for, before even getting to the meeting? Like the actions you take previously will really, really help with that, which is awesome, right? So, but these are the initial questions going through my head. And when I was going on my first like nice holidays, right, I'd traveled a lot before I started like making good money. I'd been to Japan, I'd been to America multiple times, I'd been loads and loads of places, but I'd been there as a skint guy, just going to train and train with other MMA guys. That was it. Like I wasn't like going and having a good quality of life. I think I went on, prior to like making decent money, right, I went on 2 like holidays with like girlfriends, right? One of them went to like Dublin, really great time, right? But like really affordable and pretty easy access. Then one of my other girlfriends, we went to Rome, right? And by the way, that one to Rome is probably one of the best holidays I ever had in my life, because we went as two normal young people. This is one of the funny things. I get so caught up in thinking about stuff way too much as an entrepreneur, because, you know, for example, those girls, I went on holiday with them before I had any money. I hadn't made any money. I was a fucking nobody, right? I still am a nobody in the grand scheme of the world, right? But I had nothing. There was nothing about me, right, that would make them go, oh, I want to be with him because he's got a nice car, and I want to be with him because I've got that. I had a Honda Civic and a Skoda Fabia and all these like crap cars. So those holidays were amazing, because now when I go on holiday, and I just mean myself as well, I don't just mean like any time I've been on holiday with like girls and stuff like that. And look, I always pay, because I think you should, right? And generally, not being offensive, but generally I out earn any women that I'm like speaking to or dating or in a relationship with. So I just think it's only fair that I do that. So now when I go on holiday, I'm like, oh, it has to be Nobu, Hakkasan, like £1,000 on dinners and stuff like that, because that experience is just fun and enjoyable. And often if you're like with, say it's your first time going on holiday with someone, by the way, I do this when I go to London with like my mates and my staff and stuff like that, but say it's like your first time going on holiday with someone, you want to show them that stuff, right? Assuming that they've not had it before, but you want to show them that stuff. But when I think back to like those other trips, and I think about, oh, me on holiday with like my ex-girlfriend in Rome, where I didn't really have much money, we stayed in an Airbnb, like just outside of Rome, so we had to get the bus in. Like me now, I wouldn't be seen dead on a bus, right? I wouldn't be seen dead on a bus because I just like hate them. But then it was so normal, and to think that somebody actually like liked me, that version of me, is laughable. But you weren't out having to buy expensive stuff and going for like normal food and pizzas and all that. Like that is like one of the greatest times of your life, guys. If you're in that time just now, as a single person or in a relationship or whatever, like cherish it, because it's awesome. When you're like, I'm approaching 30, well I'm 28 this year, but I'm approaching 30. I have my own business, I've put that stuff first for years. I'm no further forward to getting married or anything, but like I wish I had more of those times, because now I think to myself, oh, like, does she like me for the cars or whatever? But look, that's another type of imposter syndrome right there. Like, oh, is she with me because she likes me? Or like, she actually thinks I'm attractive in some way? Or is she with me because I've got a Rolls Royce and a McLaren and I go on holidays, and any holiday we go on fly business class, and like, is that why you fancy me? Like, that will come into your head, and I care less and less about that stuff as time goes on. I'm just like, whatever. I genuinely couldn't care about having like a relationship or whatever just now in my life. But these are all types of imposter syndrome, right? Like, I've seen it with some of my mates who've had kids, and granted, not too many of my friends, a lot of my friends have kids, but not too many of them I knew when they had those kids or when they had like the first kid. But from my friends that do, they're like, how do I know I'm going to be a good dad? Am I cut out for this? Am I prepared for this? Like, it just seeps into every aspect of your life, and ultimately can hold you back, especially in the business aspect, can hold you back from going and doing really amazing stuff, right? And I guess what I'm trying to encourage people to do just now is to do some work on you as an individual. And I'm not talking about going read The Secret and fucking do an ice bath or whatever, right? Like, if you want to do that, go and do it. But that's not like my diagnosis and like prescription for you in this situation. It's about being rational and understanding that it's going to happen. Now, I've spent so much time training this out of me, and it still pops up now and then when I'm at certain things or in certain rooms, and it doesn't come for me now really from a detrimental place, whereas previously it's like, am I good enough? Should I be allowed to be here? Do I fit in? Am I smart enough? Like, that's all stuff that you're saying to your own detriment. You're thinking less of yourself. For me now, I get in some rooms, like for example, I'm going down to London next week to do a YouTube video. I can't say who it's with, but it's someone who is like world famous, really well known. If you name them, 99% of people would know them, right? So I'm going to do a video of that person, and it's not me going down and manage to wangle them getting a video for the channel. I'm going to be on their channel, right? Just as part of this video, someone I know who's directing their YouTube channel contacted me to go down and all that kind of stuff. And when that happened, I was just like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's get it sorted. But then after like I came off that correspondence, I was like, what? Me going down for that? Now, I'm not saying, oh, I'm not good enough, I've not got a big enough audience, I'm not funny enough, I'm not interested enough, I'm not going to fit in, am I going to get on with this guy? Like, I never thought anything like that. I just went, what the hell? That's absolutely mental, like, that I'm going to go and do that. That's what came into my head, right? So, that there is imposter syndrome, but not to my detriment. But you will always still get detrimental imposter syndrome. And by the way, it's kind of like a good thing in some ways. Like if you're not in rooms where you think, yo, some big players in here, like how did I manage to wangle my way in here? Who cares though? I'm going to get the most out of it possible. Like you want to be in rooms like that. You want to feel those feelings. And oftentimes when you get something wrong, or you don't deliver what you wanted to deliver, you feel a feeling of imposter syndrome. Like I'm helping one of my friends, he also happens to be like a client of Paul's and stuff like that, with their Facebook ads just now. And the ad account wasn't in great shape previously, and we've had a couple of weeks access to it to try and fix it, but they really need new leads. And we've just not been able to clear that account fast enough, get the new creatives learned fast enough to get the result in the period of time that they really wanted it. I think we're on a good trajectory, but just in terms of the speed, I understand that they really need those leads. And I'm having to have that conversation with that person and explain to them this is why. And then I feel a feeling in myself where I'm like, shit, I didn't get the result for that. Like I hold myself to higher standard than that. Even though it was like a really tight, specific end result, which was going to be really difficult to get, I still hold myself to that standard because I'm like, I'm the guy who'll be able to make that happen. My team will be the team that can make that happen. And we've just not quite got there. And that, you have these little moments to yourself like, am I over-promising? Did I try and offer too much? Should I have been more stern? Should I have been like, nope, that's not going to happen. We're not changing that. We're not doing this. This is how it's going to be if we want it to work properly. And you have to look and examine yourself, right? That's one of the greatest things in the Bible that you will ever read is, examining oneself. You should examine oneself and see if you're worthy. In that aspect, that's for the kingdom of God. In this aspect, this is me talking about, I need to examine, well, what can I do better next time to make sure that maybe I set the right expectations and that I put the right processes in place to make sure that like stuff like this isn't happening again, or the conversation that has to be had can be avoided. Not avoided by being ignored and like hiding behind the wall, but just avoided in terms of it doesn't need to happen because you're on the same page and you understand how it's going to go. That's kind of how we look at it, right? So that you will naturally, as time goes on, just be subject to more acute types of imposter syndrome. But for those of you right now watching this who maybe you're going, oh my goodness, that's what's been holding me back for years, and I just thought that was like my internal monologue. I thought that would just happen to everyone, it's normal, and I didn't realise that this is like a thing. Well, the first step is you need to be aware of it. To be able to control something, you need to be aware of it. If that is a blind spot in your life, it's going to blindside you. That's just like common sense. So you need to be acutely aware of it happening. That doesn't mean that when you're acutely aware of it happening, you go and it disappears and it's totally fine. When you're acutely aware of it, you can manage how you potentially externalize those feelings. You can manage how you deal with it in your own private time with yourself. And you can also become more resilient to it. When you're aware that you're being subjected to that from yourself, right? You can then be calloused in how you approach it because you get more and more used to being hit with it. And as time, your standards to feel like an imposter will rise. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to rise when it is you go, shit, I feel like an imposter. Because just now you might feel like an imposter in a normal meeting. You might feel like an imposter getting a very basic, promotion inside of your work. You might feel like an imposter because you've just started your business and you're just about to ask someone for your first £1,000. Like you need to ask them you've put a price together that's £1,000 and you're like, am I worth someone giving me £1,000 to do one thing? I've spent my whole life being on £13 an hour and I'm just about to ask someone for £1,000. We want to get to a point where when you start feeling imposter syndrome is one, less detrimentally, but two, for bigger reasons. can't believe we've got to this point where we're asking people for £1 million for something. How crazy is that? Like, I never thought I was going to be able to do that, but here we are, so we might as well enjoy it and keep growing. That's the type of imposter syndrome you want. Or, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm in this room and I am doing, £4 million a year and everyone in this room is doing like 40 or above. That's mental that I've managed to get in here. But obviously, either people see something good in me, which means I'm of value to be in here, or I should just use the time that I've got in here to network as hard as possible and try and get, as much value from being in the room as possible and give as much value, because you would still be the person doing 4 million a year, which is still solid. You'll do something better than everyone in there that you can help them with. So that's what we're trying to change this imposter syndrome angle to. And I want you to stop being like held back by it, right? And this whole conversation that we're having just now might be a realization for you, and quite a sudden one, like, oh my goodness, like a bit shocking. That's been happening to me and I've not done it. Well, it's time now to start not focusing on it, that's wrong. It's time now to start being aware and stop being dissonant with that happening. And then that means you can actually get control over it, and you can have it more so be a motivator and a moment of pride than it would be something that's actually holding you back from going and doing the thing that it is that you want to do. So for those of you out there that are feeling like an imposter, you feel like you don't belong, you feel like you're not worthy, I can guarantee you you're probably financially worth a lot more. You're probably not getting paid anywhere near what you're worth or what you deserve. You could probably also do better, be better, try harder, which would help nullify your feelings of low self-worth, or not even just low self-worth, your feelings of situationally low self-worth. Your actions will often have a massive impact on how you feel internally. You're going to feel lazy because you are lazy often, although sometimes I feel lazy and I've just worked like 6 days in a row and done 13 hours per day, but that's just me holding myself to high standards. It's been a super short podcast. Actually, I don't know how short it's been, but I'm trying to give you as much value in as short a period of time. I don't think I'm ever going to be this guy, minus maybe with guests, that does like 50, 60 plus minute long podcast. I like coming in with something you can listen to on the way to work, you can stick on whilst you're in the gym, and you can get a little bit of value. You can get a lot of value in a little bit of time. So if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment down below on your opinions on imposter syndrome. And if you are connected with us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, stick around and listen on there as well. Thank you very much for joining me. I've been Richard Dickson, and I'll see you soon. Peace.